Hi, everybody. Good morning. I hope that everyone is well today, and we're really excited to um, tell you a little bit about CityWorks and our work to improve the education to employment pipeline in Washington, D.C. My name is Rich Pullman. I am a fellow at CityWorks, where I'm working on establishing a new and innovative post-secondary program that I'll tell a little bit about. But I want to first just do an overview about CityWorks, and then we're going to talk about one of our programs in particular. And we've got some great panelists today to talk through their experiences with Careerwise, which is a modern youth apprenticeship program. And so let me get started and tell you a little bit about our organization, and we'll talk a little bit about our programs. So CityWorks is a new entity we're currently incubating at CityBridge DC. And our goal is to improve early career outcomes for DC youth and ensure that students are gaining employment experiences, relevant work experience, social capital, and credentials, whether that be certificates or post-secondary degrees needed to compete for our family sustaining jobs here in Washington, D.C. And we understand this through the eyes of sort of a typical tale of our two cities, in which we have an enormous wealth gap where 81 times the median net worth of a white family versus a black family in DC is dramatic, and it's unsustainable for black families in our city. Also, the number of individuals who are white at 89% with a bachelor's degree over the age of 25 versus 25% of black DC residents. At the same time, 81% of jobs posted at the family sustaining wage in Washington, D.C. require a bachelor's degree. So we have a large gap to fill here. And we also know that we're not yet graduating and sending enough students to college who are matriculating within that 6 years. In fact, a recent study from the DC Policy Center cited that approximately 14 out of every 100 students who enter a ninth grade cohort will complete post-secondary degree. And again, this is compared to 81% of family sustaining jobs that require a bachelor's degree. And so our goal is to establish programs and work at the both the systems level and the program level to increase the relevant paid work experience students are having, build a professional network of supportive individuals that are helping students to identify job opportunities, expand their skill sets, mentor, and then also building programs that offer a post-secondary degree and industry-based credentials. We know that this work is going to be hard. We also know that we need to approach the work in partnership with high schools, employers, and post-secondary institutions. And I think what you're going to hear from high school student today, you're going to hear from employers today that talk about the programming that we're offering currently through Careerwise through the lens of these different sectors and different partnerships. A couple of upcoming items. Like I said before, we are a new organization, and the organization right now is focused on both developing and launching and sustaining programs. This is also in addition to some of the systems level work we're doing with Deputy Mayor's office. The program right now, currently, I'm working on an innovative post-secondary pilot where we're bringing a high support model for post-secondary to Washington, D.C. This is a model that would have supports for students that are built into post-secondary, the first couple of years of college. It would be something that is low cost and mostly covered by TAG or Pell dollars for a TAG and Pell eligible student. Something that's flexible. So it's open access and allows students to be working or parenting while attending college. And it's also industry driven, signaling that the credential and the degrees that are offered in the program are relevant to local industry. Our goal is to launch this new post-secondary option by the fall of 2021, so fall of next year. And if you're interested in knowing more about any of these programs, there's some information at the end where you can contact us to get more information. Right now, we are in the research and development phase for this program, and we're actually looking for students who maybe are recent graduates from your high schools. If you're in a high school or an after-school program, we're looking for students to be interviewed and participate in our design cohort. So if you have students that you think might be interested in a local, flexible, high support model for post-secondary, thinking about imagining that it's a cohort of students who are going through their first couple of years of college together, but with academic and social emotional supports built around them to help them succeed. We've also co-designed a Career Bridge alumni support program. We have about 15 DCPS high school graduates right now working with us to both participate and design a support program for students who are not going to college or right out of high school necessarily. That includes career workshops, career counseling, and job placement support. Again, for students who maybe that 4-year traditional pathway isn't an option, they've elected not to go to college right away. College might be a part of their dream and planning eventually, but it's not right now. And we know that our students also need help finding jobs and improving their skills through career workshops and counseling so that they can obtain a family sustaining job and contribute meaningfully to their post high school pathway. The third part of our work is around creating a local learning agenda related to systemic change. This revolves around research, publishing that research, having convenings so that we're expanding the conversation around DC youth career outcomes, not just whether or not a student is graduating from high school or beginning college within 6 months, but rather how are our students doing with respect to their career outcomes, right? When we look back to the slide around the tale of our two cities, what we know is that the careers that are offered at the family sustaining wage are not careers that enough of our DC youth are getting. They're not the jobs that our students are getting, and we need to change the way that our city is approaching this problem. And part of that is convening, researching, and beginning the conversation and deepening that to be more about career outcomes and how our students are faring in their lives, in addition to how they're faring in high school and on our traditional measures of success. I'm going to transition now to talk to let Latifa talk a little bit about our Careerwise pilot, which has launched recently. And we're going to dive deeper into this specific program for the rest of the panel time. Latifa?
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Latifa Durant. I'm the Vice President of CityWorks DC, and we are thrilled to have launched our Careerwise DC program this fall. The Careerwise program is a modern youth apprenticeship that enables students to both go to high school and go to work. They are learning valuable skills that will help to prepare them on their pathway to career success, helping them to achieve and get access to those jobs that Rich was speaking about earlier. The program also provides opportunities for our young people to access post-secondary credits as well as industry training. We've launched the pilot this year with 15 apprentices from KIPP DC and Friendship Public Charter School, and we're delighted to have one of our Friendship students join us on the panel today, as well as one of our administrators from KIPP DC join us as well, and they'll just introduce themselves in a few moments. We also have 6 employers that are engaged in the pilot. That includes Accenture, and we have a representative from Accenture here on the line. That's a large company. And then we also have smaller and medium-sized companies that are more regional to our area. That would include organizations such as Enlightened and Limbic Systems. We have two pathways that we're offering for young adults this year, and that's information technology and business operations. It's our goal to expand the number of apprentices, the number of employers, and the number of pathways when we look ahead to fall 2021. Next slide. Yeah, so next year we're hoping to have 45 apprentices. That includes our 15 apprentices from this cohort, as well as adding another 30 apprentices for next year. And we also want to increase the number of employers that are engaged. We're delighted to have the 6 employers that we have this year, but to bring this opportunity to scale, we need to include more of our employers and business partners, as well as add new pathways for young people to be able to explore. So in addition to business operations and IT, next year we're looking to add pathways such as finance or healthcare to be responsive to trends that we're seeing and job opportunities that we're seeing here in our DC region. So how this all works, if you are a student, you are in high school in year 1 of the program, typically starting with an 11th grader, and they're in school 3 days a week and working 2 days a week. What that really looks like is that they're in school every day for a little more than half a day. And then in the afternoons, they typically go to work. And our student will be able to tell you more about that today. In addition, they're working about 12 to 16 hours a week. And we're providing them with professional development training. That's through both the employer, which Accenture will tell you about some of the training that they're providing for the apprentices, as well as professional development sessions that we're providing here at CityWorks DC. Our professional development session started this summer with our summer boot camp. That summer boot camp was 10 sessions over 2 months, and the students were able to learn critical skills such as communications, writing, being able to navigate the workplace for themselves, being able to work in a virtual environment, as well as being able to communicate effectively in writing as well. And so we're also going to be working with industry providers to help our young people earn technical certifications in IT and business operations, certifications such as CompTIA and your Microsoft Office certifications as well. When our students go to year 2, that's typically their 12th grade year. In that case, they continue to go to school, but they've completed much of their graduation requirements, so they're able to work a bit more. And so that looks like about 20 to 24 hours of work in their senior year. And then the 3rd year is that first year after high school graduation. So there's no longer any high school courses to take, but they're able to work closer to a full-time schedule with their employer while also taking post-secondary classes. And so we're working to determine who our IHE partner is. That's our institution of higher education partner is going to be for this program, so that our young folks are able to get college credits while they're participating in the program as well. So this is a great opportunity for our panelists to unmute themselves and to turn on their cameras. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves, and they can tell you a little bit about the work that they're doing as it relates to Careerwise. We can start with Tavera Stiff, who is at KIPP DC.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Tavera Stiff, and I'm Vice President for KIPP through College and Career. And as we work with Careerwise, my role is to just make sure that we're on the same page. We have 2 high schools, amazing students, and lots of folks who want to celebrate this program. And so I'm delighted to make sure our ship is sort of steering the same way, but there are a lot of people rowing and paddling to make sure students have this opportunity at KIPP DC.
Thanks, Tavera. And I'll ask our employer representative, Trish, if you would introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Latifa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Trish Pescator, and I'm a senior manager at Accenture. And I have about 20, 25 years of human resources experience at Accenture. For those of you that don't know what Accenture does, we're a management consulting organization. We have over 500,000 employees across the globe, and we service many different clients. We definitely service the larger companies that you know are our clients. One of my passions is really helping young adults. When I look back on my career, the things I've done in terms of recruiting for Accenture and helping young adults figure out the career journey and what they want to do. it's a passion of mine. And so now I really have this opportunity. I'm leading our Accenture Youth Apprenticeship Program. So my passion and my work come right together. And we started our youth apprenticeship journey back in September 2019 in New York City with Careerwise New York. And now I'm so happy to say that we have 41 high school apprentices working with us in 2 different locations. We have New York, and now we have the inaugural class in DC. And I'm really excited to be a part of this panel today and sharing my experiences and really partnering with CityWorks DC during its inaugural apprenticeship year.
Thanks, Trish. And last and most importantly, Latoya, would you introduce yourself?
Hey everybody, as Latifah just said, my name is Latoya Hopper. I'm a junior at Friendship Tech Prep, and now I'm doing an apprenticeship with Accenture with the role Business Operations.
Thank you, Latoya. My first question is for Trish. We know that Accenture has hosted interns from a number of high schools in the DC area over the years, and that Accenture is truly committed to our DC youth. How would you say that this program, Careerwise Youth Apprenticeship, is different? And how is Accenture approaching working with the apprentices differently than some of your other internship offerings?
That's a great question, so thanks. First of all, we are committed to supporting our youth, regardless whether it's an internship or an apprenticeship program. This past summer, we had a DC-based internship at Accenture where we hosted 42 DC interns. And they basically working on a crash course of consulting, learning about design thinking, personal branding, things like that. And it was only 6 weeks. So it was a 6-week immersion with Accenture. That's our internship program. I think the apprenticeship program is much different. It's much deeper in terms of the skills the apprentice acquires and the length that they actually work at Accenture. And it develops alternative pathways for them. So it's not a 6 week and you're done. It's an ongoing 3-year learning experience. And as Latifah mentioned earlier, where the students split their time between high school classroom and the workplace, and they get hands-on meaningful experience and build core competencies, both career readiness competency and occupational. We pay them, they earn a wage, and by the end of the 3 years, they're really work ready and could potentially be converted into full-time hires without having a college degree. So it's really a different pathway than an internship. I also think the apprenticeship program is very life-changing, not only for the students, right, in terms of the skills they acquire and the connections and the network they build, but also for the employers and the community.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Trish. And I'm wondering, Latoya, and since you're working at Accenture, can you tell us what it's been like these first few weeks on the job? What does your day look like? What skills are you focused on? Tell us a little about the work that you're doing right now at Accenture.
Okay, my typical work day is amazing to me because we're able to meet new people. And so I have school from 9 to 1:30 that I'm able to complete any schoolwork or homework that the teachers assign before 3 o'clock. And I'm with Accenture from 3 to 5. And one huge skill that I believe that all of us are working on right now is communication skills. Since it is DC cohort and the New York cohort in the same call together, we all have to advocate for ourselves, speak out when we need help, speak out when something is not what we want it to be or what we think should be better. So yeah, it's good.
That's great, Latoya. And it's great to have your perspective as a student. Tabera, while Latoya is at Friendship Public Charter Schools, it would be great to hear a little bit about why you and your colleagues at KIPP think this education to employment pipeline needs to be expanded. You're already doing so much at KIPP to ensure that your students are getting college and career ready. Why expand to this employment opportunity as well?
Well, and let me just say, Latoya is amazing, hired already. Already, just that communication piece is so important, and I'm so glad that she's centralizing it. And that what she said is really the key as to why we're a part of this partnership. While we know that there are so many skills that students learn in college, we also know that there are a lot of skills that we learn right up front when we're on the job. And it's important that we provide that opportunity. And then sometimes our why is like, I've always wanted to go to college. I've always wanted to do that. But sometimes our why is we get into a job, we see what the work looks like, and it says, wait a minute, I have my eye on this position that now requires a greater certification, a different degree, and then we push on to there. So what we've discovered is two things. Not all of our students are going to be headed in the most typical way to college right away. Some of our students are going to want a different journey. And I use a phrase that actually, Latifa, you gave me once, which is not a ladder, but a lattice. We still get to the top, but we don't necessarily go in that straight direction. There are lots of different sort of places where we can put our foot or our hands to get to our feet or our hands to get to the right spot. And I think those are important. The other thing that I know about the world of work is that the work that our students do should be compensated. And so what I love about the apprenticeship program is it doesn't just put students in a position where they're giving, helping, and their labor, but it also recognizes that when they work, they should be compensated. And so now Latoya has the opportunity, I'm sure with her other peers and our students at KIPP, to also work on financial literacy, think about how they're saving, think about those long-term things. So it is just a crash course in great life skills that will end in the end with a resume that no other student a year out of high school will have. And so there's a win-win for everybody. And it's a great path for some of our students, while others of our students will hit that ladder way and go straight up to college. Other students will pick Latoya's way and still have an awesome life journey and feel like they're going to live their dreams.
Absolutely, Tavera. And I think one of the things you mentioned about students being compensated for their input and for the work that they're doing is very important. And so I guess my question for you, Trish, is we appreciate that Accenture recognizes the value that our young people can bring to the workplace. If you were talking to employers, other organizations that are considering hiring an apprentice or considering participating in this program, what would you say is the business case for hosting an apprentice, or what really sold Accenture on this program? You know, how would you describe those benefits to other employers? That this isn't just an opportunity to do your typical support of the community, your community support work. What's the business case for participating in the Careerwise Youth Apprenticeship Program?
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. But before I do that, I just want to say Latoya is a shining star and she's doing great. So I totally love seeing her on the screen and having her part of the program. So, you know, the benefit to the employer for Accenture, we're a professional services company. And so talent is key. We need to have the right talent to deliver our product, our services to our clients. And what you know, with talent comes a talent strategy of talent acquisition, development, and then retention. And so the apprenticeship program allows us to kind of focus on that front part, which is the talent acquisition, right? Being able to have a glimpse of that first talent and almost develop our own talent market, right? So that we can bring talent in, we can train them, we can educate them, we can embed them in our culture with a longer term view of retaining them and keeping them as a key talent source for Accenture. Accenture has a larger North America apprenticeship program, which is not, it's more than youth. It's actually for folks who are after high school. And, you know, we started back in 2016 with 5 apprentices in Chicago. And now at the end of this calendar year, we'll have over 700 trained apprentices at Accenture. Many of them have been converted now into full-time hires. And of those 741, as I mentioned before, are the youth apprentices. And we're just starting on the youth journey and really excited about that. Now, as an employer, I would give, you know, if I'm talking to another employer, it's not only about the talent market and developing it, but it's also about, you know, diversity, right? Inclusion and diversity of thought. Like, so these young folks come in and bring a whole different way of thinking, bring new ideas, fresh ideas, which ultimately drives innovation for our clients and for Accenture. So it's a key on the diversity piece. And then, you know, for our own people, I can't tell you how many emails I get from like Latoya's supervisors and coaches and all the other apprentices, supervisors and coaches about how engaged they are because of this program. So it increases their own engagement in doing their own work and therefore higher productivity, and it's beneficial for the employer. So there's lots of, to Vera's point, it's a win-win for everybody, for the the apprentice, for the employer, for the community. And, it's just a great way to kind of make sure that we're all kind of moving forward and helping each other.
Fantastic. Latoya, as Tavera mentioned earlier, there are a lot of benefits from this program for young people in their participation. How does the Careerwise program, how does it help you to accomplish your career and educational goals?
First, I want to say that every high school student should take the opportunity because of the fact that everyone is constantly mentioning college, 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 college. Like everyone is not destined to go to college. So everyone should not be pressured to have the idea that right after high school, you should go to a four-year university. So as I stated earlier, they most definitely help with communication skills because no matter what you do, no matter what route you take, you are going to have to communicate with someone in some form of way. Either if it's verbal or if you writing it. So they help with my communication skills, and also, as Tara said, that they helping us get the real work experience because not a lot of companies are willing to work with students that's from the DC area.
That's great. Thanks, Latoya. And as you heard earlier, Latoya mentioned that she is leaving school a bit early so that she can participate in this experience. Tavera, getting children out of the building for the number of required hours can definitely be a challenge. So what types of structures did you have to alter or do you plan to alter at KIPP to allow students to be able to participate in the program? And what would you recommend to other schools that are considering participation?
We have had to take a long look at our schedule, which has involved many folks. I will take no credit for the work that happens in our schedule. We have an awesome data team and a great leadership team at both of our high schools that are digging in to really see, how can we make this work for students? We've had to ask ourselves some hard questions about our honors and AP classes and when those are placed in the day for students who still want to take advantage of them and do an apprenticeship program. But when I think about the lives of schools, we've always needed to be nimble when it came to opportunities for students. How many of our schools have students early dismissed 2 days a week because of athletics in a different context, not the COVID context? How many schools are needing to do that for arts programs or other opportunities? We have a robust dual enrollment program at KIPP DC. And so we've always been adjusting schedules so students can get off to a campus to have that experience. I think the best advice I would give any kind of charter school or LEA that's looking into this work is that you have to be nimble and you have to have many minds around the table. A lot of times when we think about this, we think about it as a top-down kind of proposition where it's just leaders sort of saying, we can do this, we can make this work. I think we really got to see the fruition of what could happen when we added those who do our schedule, our registrar. We added the folks who go and say our kids earn degrees because they have all these classes. You need those folks at the table, but who you also need at the table are parents. I think while Latoya has fully embraced the fact that this is a benefit for her, so many of our parents are so focused on what we call that ladder piece, where you go from here, then you go here, and you go here, and that's how you measure success. And so we need to spend some time talking to students, parents, and then quite honestly, some of our teachers about why this program could work for students. And it doesn't mean that you won't go to college, it just means you're not going right away. It also reinforces that idea that the prize that we want for our students is a life of choice and for them to live out their dreams. And who are we to dictate how they always do that? I think we can show them, if we're doing it right, a variety of different models, but we've got to start building that skill of choice for our students where they say, I think I want model B because that works with my personality and who I am. What I hope to get to, and so we're in this for the long haul, Latifa, I hope to get to the place where we have apprenticeships, not at just sort of using business and IT that we already have, but I can't wait till we have apprentices who are working in construction and other places where while we have Latoya who is doing school, and this is what our interns will do school and then they leave early, but what if we flip-flop that? And we have some students who start the morning off on a construction site or being program managers of something else and then come to school in the afternoon. And so I'm looking at us being as an LEA, as a school system, being nimble so that we can fit the dreams of our students. The last piece of this that I think is often a little hard is that being an adult means you have to make decisions. And so this year, I suspect Latoya's already had some instances where she's had to decide. Now, I decided I was going to do this apprenticeship program, so it might mean I can't participate in X or I can't participate in Y. I think we give students a false sense that they can do it all, they can do everything. And I certainly know my life is not like that. I'd love it to be, but it's not. And so the other thing I love about this program is not only are they learning financial literacy, but they're kind of learning some of those life skills that I don't know that I figured out until I was already out of college, employed for several years. Latoya and her compadres, our students, are going to learn that information so much early. And then they'll say, yeah, I had to choose between these things, but I made the choice. And that's how we really empower students and we change generations. It's not by making it seem like you can have it all. You can have it all, but there might be some choices you have to make along the way. So I appreciate this kind of adult thinking that our students are having to do. And I appreciate that they're pushing us to really think about our models and what we do in education so much differently. So I advise people be nimble, but also remember the innate life skills that we're teaching students when we take this risk of doing this amazing program.
Amazing, Tavera. And I think one of the, well, you said so many important things, but one of them being the fact that we provide our young people with choices, that they're able to make decisions about their future and what career fields they want to go into and the educational pathways that they want to take. And that these young people in the Careerwise program are starting to develop those skills and learning how to make the best choices for them and for their future. And that it doesn't have to be an either or. It really can be a both and. But to your point, you can have it all, but you may not be able to have it all at the same time. And so, what's your order in terms of how you want to approach your life? And Trish, I know, we all think Latoya is fabulous. And I know you love her and her supervisors do. For those who are applying in the future, what are you looking for in a successful candidate at Accenture? Your process is quite rigorous, and I applaud Latoya for getting through the interview process and the writing process and all that. So what are you looking for at Accenture for a successful candidate? Because as you said, this is an opportunity that could lead directly into a job. Most people that want to work at Accenture, they go out to a four-year college, they get that degree, they might, they go to business school, and then they hope that they can get in the door, right? So because you're recruiting talent so young, what is it that makes a difference? What makes Latoya and her colleagues stand out?
Yeah, happy to share. And I agree with a lot of the stuff Veras was talking about before too, about to be successful with the parents' involvement, ensuring that they're supported by their students being supportive, definitely. So as you mentioned, Latifa, our process is pretty rigorous. So we do a full-blown recruiting process, right? We have an information session. It was virtual this year. And then we also have, we select who we want to interview. Latoya had to go through an actual job application and apply online, which is a lifelong skill to, for the future whenever you need to apply and updating your resume. And then we brought them through 3 rounds of interviews, so pretty rigorous, a screening and a couple other interviews with key members of the organization. And, and through that, then they actually go through, even a background check after they accept. So it's a very lifelike, real life situation and very highly competitive, as you mentioned. So what I look for and what Accenture looks for when we think about our youth apprentices isn't much different than what we think about when we try to hire folks right out of college. And actually, we want to see a couple of things. First of all, communication skills, being able to communicate verbally and written. We do have a writing component to our assessment. I think it's really important that the students have taken the time to think about the why they want to be in the apprentice program. That's really important because it's a commitment. And, as Tavera said, they're giving up playing football after school because they're going to want to work and be a part of the apprentice program. So it's the why in that written assessment is really important. I think they need to have an aptitude to learn new things, but more importantly, the desire to learn more new things, right? So they want it, they want the desire to learn. Extracurricular activities. So is the candidate somebody who is only working on school, or are involved with other activities, working in a team environment, and also showing some leadership traits during that. And then lastly, which is important, is interest and understanding of Accenture. So we are not a company that, you know, you would know the name. Most high schools don't know who Accenture is. Actually, most adults probably don't even know who Accenture is, right? But you probably know all of our clients. And so doing a little research, you know, that was also really important, making sure that you, as a candidate, you can speak to what Accenture does, but more importantly, that you're interested in what we do, right? So those are kind of the key pieces. You know, I do think, so we bring them on board after they get to the interview process, we bring them on board day one as an employee. So they get integrated into our culture and our core values of what it's like to be at Accenture, which again is also really important. Like, so it's not a side employee, or, you know, they're part of the team. And I think Latoya kind of mentioned that before when she was speaking. So yeah, so I think that's what we look for. And then we integrate them into the team. We talk about our culture and our core values, our commitment to inclusion and diversity. We have leaders from our top leaders in North America come and speak to the apprentices and give advice and talk about their journey lines and what they experienced here at Accenture in other ways. And so at the end of the day, I just think that, you know, we find the top talent that we think fits the best with Accenture, and then we continue to help them learn and grow throughout their 3-year program.
Okay, I would like to add, even though I'm not an employer, I most definitely think that the students should have persistence and determination, because another one of my friends that's also attend Friendship Tech Prep, one of the teachers recommend him to do it too, and he was like, "How long was the process?" I'm like, "The process is extremely long. Like, it's like a real job process." And he was like, "No, I don't want to do this." I said, "Come on, all it is just multiple interviews, and you also do have a writing prompt that you had to fill out. So you most definitely need persistence to keep going, no matter how long the process is."
Well, Latoya, you certainly have persistence and grit and everything else you need to be successful. I mentioned earlier that we did a summer training program with you, the summer boot camp with our facilitator, Cordell. Tell us a little bit about the summer training program and what sorts of things did you learn, and how are you applying those to work now that you started for a few weeks in now?
At first, going to the boot camp, I was ecstatic to be a part of it, because I knew that I was able to meet the other people, the other apprentices that would be in the cohort with me. So I was excited about meeting them. So that was a plus, that I was able to meet a couple of them before we was merged into the large cohort where I was in there not knowing anyone. So that was fun. And two things that I would say that I learned is that what is my style. Like during a boot camp, I learned that I'm a visual learner. So now when we get merged off to work with our supervisor, if she say a whole lot of words, I can ask her to maybe draw out an example or give a map plan of what she wants to be done. And what was the last question you said?
Well, exactly what you're answering, which is like how you're applying it. So one thing it sounds like you've learned is you learned about yourself. You learned that you're a
Yes.
visual learner. Is there anything else that you learned during boot camp, either about yourself or a skill that's helping you on the job these first few weeks?
Okay, I definitely learned how to manage our money. During the boot camp, we had a section where we had to make a map out about what's about items that we want and items that we need, and we had to write down a list and a total. And Cordell gave us a price. I forgot what the price was, and we had to manage that little bit of money, and see who can come out with having more money at the end. So that was fun. So I'm definitely using that now, and only buying things that I need and not necessarily a whole lot of wants.
Yes, 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 yes. And Tavera's mission is definitely a great way to learn about financial skills, and not just in theory in a book or in a classroom, but actually applying the financial literacy skills to your everyday life. And so that's fantastic. I'm glad that that was helpful to you. I think we have some questions in the chat as well. So I guess I'll ask my colleague, Rich, are there any questions that we have from the group?
Sure. So I'll put a plug in for folks. Now is a great time to enter questions you might have for the panelist, whether an individual panelist or we can select the right person for each question. Latifa, the first question is one that was posted in advance, and that's, how do schools add this concept to after school programming?
That's a great question. Um, I'll answer from my perspective, and I don't know if Tavera or Trish, you'd like to join in as well. But the Careerwise Youth Apprenticeship Program isn't really designed as an after-school program. That's more in line with perhaps an internship program where students are able to work for some limited hours here and there. But the type of work that they're doing, just think of us as employees and professionals. It's a pretty difficult to just say, oh, I'm going to get a little bit done, here and there. And so it does really require a significant amount of hours for young people to be able to actually get the skills they need, to be able to get those competencies they need, and for the businesses to also see a return on that investment in terms of training a young person. So it's not really designed as an after school opportunity, but to be embedded in the school day, as Tavera mentioned, actually thinking about your school schedule. What classes do students need to take and when? What does it look like in ninth grade and 10th grade so that they're ready for the opportunity in the 11th grade so that they could perhaps have a course at the end of their day, their apprenticeship course where they go off to work, or a course or two where they're able to go off to work. So it's not designed to be an after school program.
Yeah, I would agree. I think thinking about it as an after school program probably doesn't put the right kind of weight or value on the experience as a whole. And I think this is a place where often school systems and quite honestly, businesses, I bet Trish can talk about this a little bit from the Accenture dynamic, is that we try to take a new idea and fit it into an old framework. And so we don't give the new idea the kind of power or prominence that it could have. And so instead, I think we need to say, here's a great opportunity. And like you've described, Latifa, how do we adjust our model? Who do we adjust our model for so that we can make sure it can shine on its own right, that it can grow in its own right? And I think that does take planning from ninth grade. So I recently had a conversation with one of our assistant principals who's captaining this work. And one of the things that she said is like, we've got to figure out how we talk to our 10th graders. How do we talk to our ninth graders early on and really show them what this program is so that they can make some early choices about what they want to do. And so now our thinking is not just who can we pull, who is eligible just out of what we have, but how do we talk to students early so that we have more and more eligibility when it comes to the program itself. So I think that that's important as a key. I think the other piece that is somewhat related to this and how we adjust is also the value of the skills that students are learning as a part of the internship, and that those aren't necessarily the same skills they would learn in a typical after school program. Some of them might be overlapped, but some of them go far beyond that. And so while we've run lots of programs about financial literacy, I think Latoya would argue that, there's no better way for me to learn financial literacy than you putting some money in my hand and having me figure out how to use it, how to save it, and how to think about it. And the fact that she's earning those dollars herself means that her value on it. I don't know about Latoya. She sounds like she has it together, but I know my appreciation of a dollar looked real different than when I would ask my grandma for some money than when I actually earned it myself. And so I think that makes a difference as well. And I think that's an important piece of what happens. Again, the key word is nimble. How do we make sure our school systems are nimble, but still make sure kids get the core requirements that they need? But in fact, I would say Latoya can probably write a great analytical paper because she's been working on that forever at Friendship in her English and her history classes. But now what she knows how to do from working at Accenture is create a persuasive argument in a business setting that isn't a 4 to 5 page paper, but maybe a very powerful PowerPoint. So again, we got to be nimble because if we're going to have students develop these skills and be able to use them right out of high school, they have to have these experiences.
Fantastic.
I would
And
most
for those who
definitely.
You want
want
me to
to,
add? Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Okay,
no, I was just
I
going to
most
say,
definitely
if
have
anyone
to.
else has questions they want to ask, please go ahead and raise your hand, and then we can allow you to unmute yourself so that you're able to ask your questions for those who are tuned into our webinar. I'm sorry, go ahead, Latoya and Trish.
I most definitely like to back her up on that because in 2018, yeah, I believe the summer 2018, I took a dual enrollment finance class. And while the professor was talking, we had to write in this little book saying that how we save for our 401 accounts, how we save about stocks and funds. And I'm like, yeah, I worry about all of this when I get older. No need to worry about all of this now, but it's good to know. But with this apprenticeship, I'm like, oh man, now I really got to save because I need this in the long run. I got to save for when I to save some money for if I do decide to go to college. So it's really a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just, I told that's great news, Latoya. I'm happy you're making it, it's making a difference. You know, I want to just add that I think the scheduling component and how you look at how the school looks at this being as an integral part of the student's day is really important. To me, as the employer, I will tell you one of my biggest challenges is the scheduling sometimes, and especially in today's world with all the online learning that's going on, our apprentices today are all online. Like, we're not in the office, and you know, and so I have found I work with 18 different high schools between New York and DC through Careerwise. So they're the ones actually going out to the high school. But you know, there are some high schools that are really adaptable and saying, yes, I have to free up my students for the apprentice program, knowing the value the student is getting from being in the program. And then there are a few others that say, sorry, I can't be flexible in that way. And the student is the one that gets impacted and hurt if the school can't kind of embrace that change and support, because they then have fewer hours, they get paid less money, and they have less experience. So I do think that scheduling is really critical. And as folks are thinking about, you know, the apprenticeship program from their school perspective, it's about being, you know, being supportive and kind of embracing the change and looking at it collectively and not as an after school activity.
You mentioned, Trish, about working in the virtual environment, which is fantastic. One, could you talk a little about how you all have shifted at Accenture in terms of transitioning from an in-person environment last year to a virtual environment this year? How's that working? What does that look like? If you could talk a little about that difference, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we started in person September 16th, 2019 with 20 apprentices in New York. And it was, you know, 4 days a week. They'd come into the office, they'd work at school. I mean, they go to school in the morning, then come into our Manhattan office in the afternoon. And it was hard, you know, when all in March, when everything shut down, especially in New York City, and the Department of Ed for New York basically put apprentices on hold because they were focused on the virtual learning, which makes a lot of sense, right? So basically we stayed engaged with our apprentices. We let them know we're here to support them if they had any questions, or we offered them our EAP because they are employees, right? And our people were going through the same thing. So then, and May 1st, the DOE lifted the suspension to start apprentices again. So therefore, we shipped all of our PCs out to our apprentices' homes. And we spent a couple of days really orienting them on how to be an effective digital worker. How do you work from home? What kind of environment should you be in? You know, make sure you have a quiet environment. You know, how do you use we use Teams, which is our collaborative tool, you know, similar to Zoom, but it's called Teams, Microsoft Teams. And we use that, really teaching them what does it mean to have a digital presence going on cameras. The same things the schools probably did as they transitioned to virtual learning. And, you know, now we're into, you know, a few months into the virtual work from home, and it's going really well. You know, I think the key is the engagement, keeping engagement up, and allowing the students to have also enough time, you know, between school, online schooling or in-person schooling, depending on what they're doing, and working, just to have enough time to kind of get up, stretch, do something to get their mindset focused on work, you know, from coming from school. In the past, physically, they had to commute into this office, and that kind of gave them that energy. I did experience the fact that they need something to kind of rebuild their energy because it's a long day for them. But overall, I'm really pleased at, you know, and proud of the way our apprentices have really kind of transferred to the online virtual world.
Fantastic. Trish, there's a question from an attendee. I don't know that this applies just yet, but perhaps you can forecast what you think you might do at Accenture. So it says, in your work with New York area high schools, how many students have you been able to hire as full-time employees post their apprenticeship? Like, a percentage is fine. I don't think you've had students who've yet gotten to year 3 and most of you have year two. But please feel free to answer what you think Accenture might be interested in doing in terms of hiring at the end of the apprenticeship.
Yeah, it's a great question, but we're a little early on that because we just started our year two apprentices. So Latoya's a year one apprentice, and we have, the year two apprentices. And many of them I know have interest in going to college. Many of them are going through the Common App application right now because they're seniors in high school. I think year three will look like, we'll have to be flexible, right? Some of them will want to go to local school, like CUNY, like the City of New York, City University of New York. Others may want to go away out of state to school. And we're going to need to be flexible in that year three. And then my hope would be that either after they graduate from the program, they would get hired as full-time, or if they're in a four-year college, they finish their 4 years, and then we hire them back because they love working here, right? So whether it's in the same role, maybe not, it might be in our consulting business. Like right now, they're all working in human resources, marketing, finance, research, office operations like Latoya. So it's our infrastructure group that they're working in. But at the end of the day, they will have different pathways and different opportunities for them as they finish the 3 years, whether it's coming back at that point in time or maybe even a couple years later. So I think the opportunities are kind of endless for them. And if they go to a different company with the skills that they've learned at Accenture, that makes me proud too. So it's a win-win.
Fantastic.
I was just
no,
gonna,
go ahead, Tavera.
I was just going to add, I had an awesome opportunity with many folks from the Careerwise sort of leadership team and some other LEAs, some folks from Friendship, to spend some time in Switzerland, really looking at this program at its inception. And while I think we are at its infancy here in the US about how apprenticeship programs really work, we have two guiding posts. One, what we see our neighbors doing in other countries around apprenticeships for years. And what I was amazed by when I was there and talking to folks was this idea that someone might start an apprenticeship which builds communication skills, financial literacy skills, or other things, and then really push their career in lots of ways. And a lot of the top officials we talk to, CEOs of companies we talk to, when we ask how they started, there's such this sort of thing in America where people shout out the name of a school and a college, and that became the thing. But it was so clear that their success was hinged on their early beginnings in apprenticeship programs. And I think those were all kinds of light bulbs going off for the team from DC who was there, like, can we build a program like that? And so while we're in our infancy, I see us going there. The other thing is, for years, this country was built on skilled laborers who started off in apprenticeships and then became masters and continued to do amazing things in their fields, master craftsmen and that kind of thing. And so I do think we have a roadmap for it, even if we don't have great examples. We don't have enough details right now, but there's no question that where you listen to Latoya and what she's done already in this short time, that even in a short time, she's probably ready to walk into many of our offices and be an asset to our communities. And so I think before too long, we're going to see a lot of that. We've had a relationship with Accenture since I've been at KIPP for over 9 or 10 years. And we've converted a lot of kids who were interns, and then they did the internship program summer after summer, and then they were employed and all of that. It took so much time as they're going through college. And now we have an example of when that relationship can start really early on. And those kids can look at college while they're working, so they can do it simultaneously and think about the best financial means by which to go through a university experience as well. So I just love the variety that's out there. And I think while we don't have strong examples now, literally about that, we do have strong examples, and I'm looking at it right here at Latoya on the screen.
Absolutely. As we close this session, do any of you have any last comments that you would like to share with those who are participating with us this morning?
I'll just chime in to say that one of the things I think I often see, and I'm a first generation to college student, is how we build our networks. And in Black and Brown communities, I think this is really important. We know the beauty of friendship, we know the beauty of community, but we often don't think about how we build our networks. And what I love about something Latoya said, it was just really quick. She said, when I sat with my cohort or when I sat with my team, and what I think about here is this game changer opportunity for her to build her network early on. And to think that right now she might be in a virtual space with someone in Accenture, and those two people could build a business 10 years from now that rivals with Accenture later on as a Fortune 500 company. And so for me, I think so often our students struggle with building their networks. They don't always have the same accessibility as first generation students or students from under-resourced communities as their white counterparts might have to like call Uncle so-and-so and Aunt so-and-so. But with apprenticeship, they're realizing the power is with them. And so they're building their network with peers. And I think we're going to see a generation of entrepreneurs from this program that will knock our socks off and really change our world.
Absolutely.
I'll add one closing remark is that, I'm so pleased to be a part of this program and to help folks like Latoya kind of figure out what they want to do and get the right skills to do it. I am also first generation college graduate for my family too. So really kind of important to me. And in terms of helping folks and kind of figuring out your career path. And all I would say is, it takes effort. It's not easy. We will be very clear about that. It's not easy. And it's about taking effort. It's about bringing together different thinking about how you can make this happen. And then, but the reward of making it happen is just, limitless, right? So that's where I would leave it. There is some heavy lifting, but it's certainly worth it.
And fitting, Latoya, please have the last word.
Okay, I would just say that every school should have an apprenticeship program because it allows students to have this grant opportunity that they would not have anywhere else.
And Latoya, that was a perfect segue for my